Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to our research and winemaking webinar series. Thank you very much for being with us today. We hope you will enjoy this webinar and will develop knowledge and new skills to be used in your winery and vineyard. I'm Dr. Aude Watrelot, an assistant professor of enology in the Department of Food Science and Human Nutrition at Iowa State University, and I'm co-hosting this webinar with my friend and colleague Drew Horton, who is a research specialist of enology at the University of Minnesota's Grape Breeding and Enology Project. So before starting the webinar, I would like to remind you some instructions. So the webinar is being recorded and will be available on YouTube in the upcoming few weeks. The webinars of the past 5 years are already published and available on YouTube with the link that you can find on your screen by scanning the QR code. If you have any questions during the webinar, please type them on the chat box that you can find at the bottom of your screen by clicking on the 3 dots. And so we will answer all your questions by the end of the webinar after the presentation. So today we will have one presentation, Clark Smith, who is working as WineSmith Consulting. He will introduce new technologies that could be used in small wineries. He will discuss wine balance and adjustment up or down of alcohol, acid, astringency, and sweetness, running through many tools, including reverse osmosis, double salt crossflow, flotation, new yeasts, woods, and many other tools. After this 60-minute presentation, he will respond to questions, and we will have a discussion with a panel of winemakers, including Mark Wedge from Dancing Dragonfly Winery in Wisconsin, Ben Banks from Sovereign Estate in Minnesota, Russ Funk from Carlos Creek Winery in Minnesota, and Josie Boyle from Mousse Sparkling Wine Company in Minnesota. But let's start with the presentation of Clark Smith.
Yeah, thank you, Aude. I'd just like to say I've known Clark Smith now personally, face-to-face for about 10 years, and he is full of innovation and the latest techniques in winemaking, wine adjustment, quality improvement. Clark Smith is a winemaker for his own WineSmith brand and has been is a consultant for hundreds of other wineries. He has for 5 decades applied his talents as an inventor, author, and musician, and teacher to the wine industry over the globe, throughout the world. His popular Winemaking Fundamentals Made Easy condensed course has received rave reviews from 4,500 plus winemaking professionals over its 40-year run. And now this course is available online. Clark Smith and the University of California Press turned the industry on its head with his revolutionary book, Postmodern Winemaking, which was Wine and Spirits Magazine's 2013 Book of the Year. I have a copy of the book. I reread it about every August just to remind me of things I've forgotten over the previous year. Clark is a regular contributor to Wine Business Monthly, Wines and Vines, and Winemaker Magazine. As senior editor for AppalachianAmerica.com, Smith explores the flavor profiles of emerging wine growing regions across North America. Clark has made wine for 64 vintages. That's 47 in the Northern Hemisphere and 14 in the South. And in 1992, founded his groundbreaking Vinovation Incorporated company to commercialize new winemaking technologies, revolutionizing winemaking throughout the world. Clark, and I'll finish up here, Clark has held professorships at 7 universities, represented the U.S. delegation for a decade at the OIV Group of Experts sur la Technologie du Vin in France. He's recognized among the world's foremost authorities on the cognitive relationship of wine and music. He was named Innovator of the Year at the IQ conference in 2016 and listed among the 48 most influential people in the wine industry by Wine Business Monthly magazine in 2018. So sit back, open your ears. Clark, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you very much, Drew. Let me see if I can get my screen shared here appropriately and pop up my presentation. Here we go.
You are up and you are full screen.
Okay, cool. So this is a really good time to be a small winery. There are a whole lot of innovations. I'm going to whip through them pretty quick here. Uh, I'm sure that we can make the presentation available to you so that you don't have to take notes. You can just sit back and relax, and I'll try to whip through these many innovations that have made life a whole lot easier than it used to be when I got in the game. Um, okay, so what am I talking about? Well, here's 12. One is a way to accelerate extraction from skins, both red and white wines. A way to cold stabilize without refrigeration to not only give you stability, but also improve mouthfeel and flavor persistence. Wonderful new way to suppress spoilage organisms. A way to automate your fermentation, so you just load it up and come back in a couple of weeks and there's your wine. Um, a way to eliminate breakdown cooperage. I hate breakdown cooperage. And there's a way around it now that I use. Red friendly bentonite, a way to use bentonite without harming your red wine color so that you can clarify your wines without filtration. Rapid, inexpensive new testing method that I'm in love with. A means for suppressing spoilage in musts, either when you're shipping fruit across the country or during cold maceration. A way to prevent spoilage in variable capacity tanks. Double salt, a way to reduce acidity in musts. Now that you have access to crossflow, that makes it quick and easy to do, where it used to be a real pain. I'm going to talk about reverse osmosis applications together with alcohol adjustments, and let's just charge into it. So innovation one is this idea called ACE, accentuated cut edges, or it also is sometimes referred to as PEACE, which stands for press early accentuated cut edges. So it is a technique for turning your tanks faster, uh, but also incredible quality enhancement. So Dr. Richard Smart is probably the world's most renowned viticulturist, and he got this idea that he worked with Angela Sparrow, who's a enologist at the University of Tasmania, and they came up with this idea of chopping the skins into smaller pieces so that you get an eccentric edge, which increases the rapidity of extraction from the skins. So in a grape, you don't get any extraction out the wax cuticle on the surface. It has to come inside through the pulp, and that slows things down, particularly with hybrids that have a lot of pectin or in cool regions. And so we get this very slow extraction of anthocyanins and flavors, and that's deleterious to wine flavor and texture. There's a rapid leakage along the cut edge, but it isn't very big. And so Dr. Smart's idea was let's cut that edge into 8 or 10 pieces, using a chopper that doesn't harm the seeds. And so you can see that we've got a cut edge along here, but it isn't very big. And so we're going to chop it into 8 or 10 pieces like that. And the effect on flavor and color extraction is amazing. So here's Angela using a giant stick blender, similar to what you might have in your kitchen, but this one is made by a company called Robot Coupe. And she's chopping half-ton bins here with a variable speed motor. And that's the piece of equipment that you want. It has to have variable speed because you're going to run it at it can be dialed from 1 to 10, and you want to run it at a 3. And so the MP450 Ultra VV, that's variable velocity, is the one you want. And here I am. Here I am chopping my Cabernet Sauvignon. Well, here's a comparison of the extraction that you get with and without chopping. The whole thing takes about 5 minutes, but it's kind of a long 5 minutes. You know, I'm 73 years old, so I try to get that big guy that cuts my grass to do it for me. Anyway, this is from Angela's paper, American Journal of Enology and Viticulture, where she's showing that, you know, 8 or 10 fragments is kind of the point of diminishing returns. So ACE is just conventional maceration. In other words, you crush right into the tank and then ferment to dryness. But if you need that tank back, or if you're trying to make a lighter style, then you press early, and those are the. So here's a bunch of Tasmanian guys tasting Pinot Noir and rating it for all of these different aspects. They said they could all detect the difference and preferred the ACE or piece at 90%. So here's just a generalization from that the darkest wine is the long maceration. The most red fruit and aromas are from the press early. The wine with the dark fruit aromas and flavors was the ACE. The harshest tannins are from the control, and smoothest tannins from the press early, and the preferred style from both of those two. Now there's Dr. Smart went to Della Tavola, and in the case where you've got a larger tonnage, you need a machine. And so Della Tavola built the maceration accelerator that's an inline gizmo, kind of looks like a ski mobile. And you simply go from the crusher with the must pump, you pump right through the machine and into your tank. And so it's much more convenient, enhanced extraction. And so they make 3 of them. If you've got a winery that's crushing somewhere in the region of 5 or 10 tons, you could go with this first machine, but you know, it's almost the same price to get one that's double the size. And it's rated for 20 tons an hour, but with East Coast fruit and Midwestern fruit, I have found that sometimes you only can go 5 or 6 tons per hour, even with the big machine. And so since they're practically the same price, that's the one you want to get. And then this is what they've got for the larger wineries, plus freight and taxes. So if you go to my website, that's WineSmith1 on, this is my website, this is my YouTube channel, and play the various videos that I've got under Della Tavola, and there's a discussion from Dr. Smart, and we did an 18 wine, 9 winery collaborative study in 2020 that's recorded there, and some interesting phenolic analyses that we used from wine X-ray. So it's all in there. I haven't got time to go through it. Okay, now a lot of Midwest wineries don't have refrigeration, and they might have an ice maker, but they can't really cold stabilize. And even if they did, I find that cold stabilization is harmful to quality, particularly with red wines. And so, an artist recently came up with this magic fairy dust called potassium polyaspartame. They've got one for reds and one for whites and rosés, and another one for reds, and that's what it looks like. And the advantage: no refrigeration required. It acts instantly. That's if you're bentonite stable. You don't have to worry about that with reds because the tannins always make them bentonite stable. But with whites, it doesn't work if you have protein in there. So you got a bentonite first, but if you do, then it works every time. Very effective. Incredible energy savings, as I'll show you. And you retain your potassium, which I did a study at Napa College where we showed that the higher potassium gives you a richer mouthfeel and flavor persistence in the finish. Also, when you chill wines to cold stabilize them, you increase oxygen pickup because oxygen is more soluble at those low temperatures. And so if you don't do that and you just keep the wine at cellar temperature, you're going to have less risk of oxidation. And also with red wines, when you cold stabilize, you can see that those colors, those crystals are not white; they're purple because it entrains color. So you can avoid that with this red wine. So here's a study on energy use in a winery, and everybody thinks that fermentation is when you use all your energy, but that's not actually true. In this study, you're using almost twice as much for clarification and stabilization. It just happens over a longer period, but it's really almost double what fermentation consumes. So here's a comparison of the energy cost for various means for stabilizing. So KPA, potassium polyaspartame, not only is the cheapest, but it's also the most effective and the least deleterious to quality. So I think it's just wonderful stuff. And all I wanted to show you in this slide is that you have to, for whites, you gotta make sure that you've prepared them with bentonite fining, or else the process doesn't work. Okay, innovation number 3 is chitosense. Chitin is what a lot of shellfish, they're carapaces made from chitin, mushrooms, And so we're now using the chitin that comes from Aspergillus niger, from a mold, and all 5 of these suppliers make a version, and you basically drop it. Well, I want to identify A, B, C, D periods of microbiology ecology. So you've got prior to fermentation, if you're doing a cold soak or shipping the grapes. Then you have the alcoholic fermentation, then your malolactic, and then the 4th is when the other, beneficial organisms mostly, but also Brett and Acetobacter and Pediococcus can come in and cause spoilage. So depending on whether you want to have a malolactic, you might add chitin right to suppress malolactic, or if you have a red, let's say, or a high acid white where you want to have a malolactic, then you get that complete before you add the chitin because it will suppress ML. So this is what the Aspergillus niger looks like. It's that black mold that you've seen maybe on your walls, or particularly you see it in distilleries. And so here's just some artists' work where they're showing this. This is malic acid here, so they're showing the suppression of malolactic using their microstab treatment. And then here's acetic acid rise in the control and totally suppressed by the microstab. So pretty cool stuff. This is there's a pint-sized Indian guy in New Jersey who is a biochemical engineer and basically developed single-use plastics for kind of reforming the whole medical community, and particularly fermentations like to make inositol and insulin. And then he sold his technology to GE, took the money and set himself up in a winery. And he looked at the way we make wine and he said, well, this is stupid. We should use single-use plastics. So that's it's called a Go Fermenter, and it'll do about 1,500 pounds. You've got a single-use disposable bag here that inflates. All you have to do is crush into this bag, turn it on, and walk away. So it eliminates punch down labor. It allows you to adjust the punch down cycle so that it can mix the fermentation while you sleep. There's no water usage except for cleaning your crusher. Eliminates cross contaminations, totally sterile. And like I said, when we measured, if you have like a 1-ton bin and you punch it down at 8 p.m. and then you come in the morning and punch it down at 8 a.m., you're going to have about a 20-degree difference Fahrenheit between the body and the top of the cap. That's just in a small fermenter. And that's not good because it causes your yeast to have to retool for the new temperatures, and it makes H2S. So when I use one of these, I punch it every 4 hours, and then I only get a 2-degree differential, never get any H2S. And then the best part of this whole thing is that it presses the wine for you automatically, and so you end up with a soft, rich tannin structure. Now, this is VJ, and his wife was a certified somm and the winemaker at Sky Acres. They won a lot of medals. Their wines are really rich and soft, and they don't use sulfites. So this is what the what the action looks like. I'm going to show you an animation in a second. And then it can also press the wine for you. So you don't have to unload it into a press. And I think that's very groovy. Now, let me see if I can get this thing going. Okay, so we're basically punching up and evacuating the CO2, and then it will deflate. And now you've got a mixed cap, and we just continue to do that. So then it's going to ferment, and you're going to get a bunch of CO2. And then in the next punch down cycle, it'll evacuate that CO2 and so forth. Okay, so then there's the pressing cycle, and that whoops, that's not what I want. Come on. Okay, here we go. I've got one of my consulting clients or colleagues in France bought a couple of these, and he's got a little chateau in France. Okay, shut up. Uh, so he just loads his Syrah into a couple of these, and then he goes to Argentina for 2 weeks. And when he comes back, the wine is done. He presses it off, and that's how he makes wine. So it's pretty neat stuff. Let me see if I can get this to move on. Okay, so that's what it costs. Uh, the whole thing is about 2,500 bucks. Now, this is the Go Fermenter Junior, which does maybe 5 to 8 gallons, and it's for home winemakers and research lots. It's very inexpensive. The liners are only 25 bucks a piece, and you just throw them away. And it has a similar action to punch it and then to press. Here I'm showing a white being pressed. Okay, so now also from Go Fermenter is I really hate breakdown coopage. You know, let's say you got 10 barrels of whatever, Marquette, and then you come back and top it in a couple of months. Well, now you got 9.5 barrels, so you have to break one of them down. You go into all these carboys, you run one of them over with a forklift, and the rest of it turns to VA, and you throw it all away. I don't do that anymore. I've got one of these guys here. In fact, I have 10 of them, and they've just got it's a bag in the barrel with a dip tube here, and costs the dip tube and the whole assembly is $142, and the bags are $27.50. So I'll just top all the other barrels from that bag. It contracts, and then I just throw that bag away at the end of a couple of years in barrel. Number 6, very simple, Mastervin Compact from Vazon or BSG. And all it is just a bentonite that doesn't strip color. So you can use it to clarify your reds. Out here we get smoke tainted wines, and we're often able to just use this product because a lot of the smoky character is in the solids, and we can often render a wine drinkable just by using this stuff. So this is from their website. I won't drag you through all of this, but pretty cool stuff. It's very simple to hydrate, and it clarifies red wine without removing the color. Okay, now there's a lot of analyses that we are forced to send out because we don't have the capability on site, but it really doesn't work. So, for example, if you send out a free SO2, you're going to lose maybe 10 parts per million on the way to the lab. So you really must do your SO2s on site. And same for glucose and fructose. If you send those out, they're going to ferment while they're on the way. So also you need to know what your TA is right now. So anyway, this is basically like a glucose monitor. It works on little strips. It's very inexpensive. It looks like that. And you just put the strip in, apply the sample, and you get your some of the analyses take up to 4 minutes. You get your free SO2s right away. The acetic acid takes about 4 minutes, but very quick. So here's what you can get. They can do acetic acid, and their measuring range is only up to 1.5 grams per liter. I did my own testing on this, and what I found, you have to dilute 3 to 1. So what I do is instead of putting 100 microliters of sample and 300 microliters of water, I put 50 microliters of sample and 350 microliters of water. And so I get a range all the way up to 3 grams per liter, which if you've got a serious VA problem, you need to be in that range. And if you don't understand what the hell I just said, get a hold of me and I'll explain it to you. So here's sulfur dioxide. Nothing to it. You just put a drop in. Almost instantaneously, you get a free SO2. So that means you can climb all over the barrel stack and get your individual free SO2s lickety split. This one here is for malic acid, same kind of deal, has a very good range. Test time's 1 minute, so you can go from barrel to barrel and get your malic acids way easier than a spectrophotometer. This one here is for, they've got two. They got a glucose and fructose, so you can measure one or both. And then here we have titratable acidity. It'll get you all the way up to 15 grams per liter. And so that's very handy at the crusher to know just what your TA is, so you know whether to use an acid reducing yeast or doing double salt. I'm madly in love. All these strips are something like $5 a piece. So so next is a non-Saccharomyces
Sorry to
yeast.
interrupt, Clark. I'm sorry to interrupt. It looks like you just stopped sharing.
Oh dear.
So maybe retry your share screen again.
Thank you. How far did I get?
It just quit out. So
Okay.
we got the last you were talking
Okay.
about was the
So we got
malic.
through the censure. You got
Yep.
through the Sensia.
Yes, you did.
Okay. All right.
There you
How's
go.
that?
You're back. It's back to you,
Okay.
Clark.
So this is a non-Saccharomyces called Mechnicovia pulcherrima, and it's known by various names from these 4 suppliers. Pretty amazing stuff. Get a load of this. It'll go in and basically kill or outcompete Clecera, Pichia, Candida, Brettanomyces, and Acetobacter and Gluconobacter, all the bad critters that might infect your wine during a cold soak or during shipment, or even it can be sprayed on vines where you have rot, and it'll knock out the bacteria, vinegar bacteria, and so forth. And then the only thing it doesn't kill is Saccharomyces cerevisiae. So when you get ready to inoculate, it's not alcohol tolerant, and so it dies off almost immediately as soon as you have over 1% alcohol. And then you go ahead with your fermentation. So I think it's really God's gift to man and woman. And here's some trials. This is from La Motabiette, which is the materials side of Book of Aslan. They call their stuff excellence bio nature. And whoops, let's go back. Down here at the bottom, you can see this is the control must. If you add a ton of SO2, you kill everything. If you don't, then you get all kinds of growth. But over here is Meschikolia pulcherrima, and what it says here is that the mycoflora is made up of only the Meschikolia. But then when it starts fermenting, that all dies back, and you get a nice pure Saccharomyces cerevisiae do the fermentation. So outcompetes spoilage organisms, protects grapes and must during shipping, protects must during cold soak, and does not inhibit Saccharomyces species. Life is good. Number 9, this is another from Go Fermenter. And here again, I just hate VCs, variable capacity tanks, because there's really no way to sterilize. If you let the lid sit down on the wine, then you're going to get spoilage bacteria there. If you don't, then you're going to have oxygen. It's very difficult to get a good seal as the tanks go out around, and basically a nightmare. I don't know anybody who likes VCs, but we're kind of stuck with them because there's nothing else. There's no alternative. But now, VJ, this is kind of an outgrowth of the Smart Barrel I showed you before, where you simply discard your lid and use the tank, or really anything. It could be an IBC, could be just a drum. He makes different sizes, and just use that for support. And then you fill the barrel with your dip tube and use a liner. You're not going to fill all the way up, so you do want to get an aspirator to suck out the headspace, and then fill and drain from the dip tube. So let's talk about double salt. Double salt's been around for a long time. Ralph Kunke and Jed Steele, from when he was at Davis, he did his thesis on double salt. Let's talk about how it works. If you just add calcium carbonate to your wine to lower the acid, it's not going to remove malic acid. It'll only take out tartrate because the pH is too low. And it also causes calcium instability. So this is a way around that. And you want to do it, you can do it on wine, but it's really much better to do it on juice. So let me show you how it works. Here's your tank with a TA of 12 grams per liter. Let's say it could be a Tosca, or it could be a Marquette, but you're going to have to figure out a way to get the juice off of here without the skins. So you're going to have to do some kind of procedure to draw off juice. Now, in this case, I'm going to pull off 30% of the volume, and I'm going to add an excess of calcium carbonate to it. So that's going to do two things. The carbonate is going to react with two protons, and it's going to make water and CO2. The calcium, so that's going to drive the TA to 0. Oh dear. And the pH is going to be, it actually buffers at pH 6.4 because that's the pKa of bicarbonate. So then it's going to precipitate these crystals that look like that, which you're familiar with. Calcium tartrate is going to precipitate, and then there are these needle-like crystals that look like that. And that's calcium malate. That'll only come out when when the pH is above 5.0, and then there is also a double salt, which is two calciums, a tartrate and a malate, and that's where the thing gets its name from. But don't worry about that. You're basically just taking out these two buffers. And so now you've got excess calcium carbonate and all the pulp from the juice and three kinds of crystals. And so what you have is a huge mess on your hands to filter. However, if you've got crossflow capability, then you're all set. And more and more we see crossflow in small wineries. There are a lot of good reasons to have it, but this is one of the best. You simply crossflow, and now if you think about it, you're adding 30% of the volume with no TA to 12 grams per liter for the other 70%. So you end up with a TA of 8.4 grams per liter, and now you can go ahead and ferment. If your TA is higher than that, then you might want to think about following this with 71B or some of the other deacidifying yeasts to bring it down the rest of the way. All right, now alcohol adjustment and reverse osmosis. I have talked about these in another webinar with Odd and Drew, and we're going to give you in the chat a link to that. So I'm just going to share the highlights here. So this is the webinar that I did before. And so I'm going to, that's the link, but we'll put it in the chat for you. So here's the take-home messages. There is a lot of chicanery out there about lowering alcohol. There are a lot of yeasts that claim to be alcohol lowering. There's lots of methods. If you're talking about a non-mechanical method, the best you can ever do is to lower the alcohol by 0.5. So I guess what I want to start by saying is there's so much interest in non-alcoholic wine that there are lots and lots of seminars and gatherings that are about low and no alcohol. And I got to tell you that they have different rules, they have different methods, things that they got different laws. And so don't try to study the two together because they're two different games. Anyway, you're going to have to use a mechanical means if you want to make no alcohol wine. And there's several ways to do it. There's the main competitor to reverse osmosis is is the Bev Zero spinning cone method. There's a couple of problems with that. One of them is it's ridiculously expensive, so it has to be it has to be done as a service, unless you happen to be in a state that's got $500,000 to throw at a spinning cone. There is one a small one in Kansas City that you can use, but their big claim to fame, which is great for non-alcohol for lower alcohol wine, is that they strip off in the first pass an essence that has your aromas in it, and then the second pass they go slower and pull the alcohol out. Then they recombine the essence. Trouble is that essence is loaded with alcohol, so you can't stay below 0.5 if you're recombining. So all it can really do is just strip out the alcohol, and it can't do a lot of the other things that RO can do. So we've got reducing alcohol in standard wine to a sweet spot for which you're going to need a still and a DSP, or else you got to send the wine to somebody. Maybe you got a neighbor that's making whiskey that'll do it for you. But you need a distilled spirits plant license to do that. If you want to make non-alcoholic wine, as I'll illustrate in a second, you don't need either a still or a DSP, because you're no longer in the realm of TTB. You can use it to remove volatile acidity, which can work really, really well. There are some companies out there that I think are kind of swindlers that make really mobile units that have very, very loose membranes. You want to get a nice tight membrane, and so I've written a lot of stuff on the internet about how to buy a machine. I really encourage both Drew and Ode to. Ode, you got your own RO, do you not? So anyway, they're not really very expensive, but
Yeah, we don't have it on
oh,
site.
you don't. Oh, you should get one. Anyway, they're not very expensive, and as long as you buy the right one, they can work really, really well for all these needs. And taking VA out does not require a DSP, because you go through a resin. Technically, the permeate from an RO is considered a still, but only if the permeate comes into inventory. But with a recombinatory VA, you just recombine, you go through basically a water softener, take out the acetic acid and recombine. And so that can be done on any bonded winery. It's also great for if you have one that goes up to 1,000 psi and you have the right membranes. It's great for taking out rainwater to concentrate juice, which is a very important application in the Midwest. And again, you have to clarify the juice if you're going to be doing that. So what the heck is reverse osmosis? Well, I looked up a definition that calls it liquid phase pressure-driven separation process in which applied transmembrane pressure causes selective movement of solvent against its osmotic pressure differential. Well, forget about it. I just say it's a flavor-proof membrane. So basically, you could put a big petite pearl, with a lot of color and tannin, and the permeate that comes out just looks like water. All it's got in it is anything with a molecular weight down around 80 or less. So there's no color, no flavor. So here's the big stuff, including colloids, and it would, if we tried to push that through this really tight membrane, it would clog immediately. So most of the energy is just recirculating this to scrub the membrane, and then what comes through on the low pressure side is water, ethanol, and acetic acid. And that's about it. So if you are like in California, our air is too dry, and so it's the same thing in Colorado, that you to get your grapes ripe, you end up with too much alcohol, and so we can take that that ethanol filtrate and run it through a still, and then recombine, chill the water back down, and we can end up taking the ethanol down anywhere we want. Now, when we do that, we have to deal with alcohol sweet spots. This is a really weird phenomenon. If you're making wine, especially red wines, and you've got low alcohol like they do in France of 10 or 11%, they're going to be thin and salty. They're not going to taste very good. And so Antoine Chaptal was Napoleon's minister of agriculture, and he said, well, let's get the peasants to grow a bunch of beet sugar, and then we'll put that in the wine and we'll get it to a more pleasant alcohol. Now in California, our problem is the opposite, that our grapes evaporate water and we end up with alcohols that are too high and they're hot and bitter. So where we really want to be is somewhere in the middle. And so, you know, our training in high school is to put a bell curve through all that. And I've done 35,000 alcohol adjustments, and I have never seen a bell curve. Here's a project that I did with Ken Fugelsang down at Fresno State. He calls me up in 1999. He says, "Okay, I'd been threatening to run over his refractometer with my car." So he calls me up and he says, "All right, I did what you said. I didn't measure the bricks. I just waited until the fruit was phenolically ripe, and we picked it, and I ended up at 31 bricks. So somehow, by the grace of God, we got it dry, but it's got 18% alcohol, and it's very hot and bitter. But it wasn't raisined. It's just they have really dry air down there. So I said, okay, give me a piece of it, and we dealkalized a portion to 10.1%, and then we back blended. So we're just using these two wines and blending to 31 different sweet, or just trials between 12.5 and 15.5, and we used 22 judges to evaluate the increments, and this is what we got. That's not a bell curve. There are 4 sweet spots here, and in between, the wines are terrible. So like no votes for 15.1, no votes for 14.9, 15.0 gets 7 votes. So this is really typical that when you're, and it's funny, the 15.1 is hot and bitter, the 14.9 is thin and salty. So it's like fractal. You know what the effect you see in large, you also see in small. Okay, part of the reason I'm bringing this up is that you guys often don't have enough alcohol, and you can go out and get yourself some nice, clean 180 proof neutral spirit. Wine Secret sells it, and then take a liter of your wine and adjust it. Let's just say it's 9% alcohol, and you figure that you want to be somewhere around, you know, at least 12. So you go ahead and adjust the whole liter with this nice clean alcohol up to the bottom of the range where you want to test. Maybe you go to 12.5, so you take the alcohol up from 9 to, you know, 12, 12.5, something like that. Now you you measure out 50 ml glasses of this and you add 0.06 ml increments. That's because the alcohol has a little water in it. And so here's what it looks like. There's all your 50 ml glasses, and you're going to add 0.06, 0.12. So you're ending up going, let's say the bottom one is 12.5, then you'd be looking at 12.6, 12.7, 12.8, 12.9, 13, 13.1, 13.2, 13.3, 13.4, 13.5, 13.6, 13.7. Taste them all. Get your assistant winemaker in there as well, and maybe, 3 or 4 people. And what you'll find is that everybody will agree that, this one and that one are the best wines. And the easy way to tell that you're almost on a sweet spot is that's when the wine tastes the worst. Kind of like when you're dialing in a radio station, when you get a lot of static, that's because you're almost on the right tuning. So that's the easy way. It's much easier. You don't need an RO to do this. It's much easier to correct alcohol from the bottom than the top. Okay, now, if we're doing alcohol adjustment for non-alcoholic beverages, now you can't do this for wine because you're only allowed to add back the water that came out of the wine. But with non-alcoholic wine, you're producing this filtrate and you simply discard it or send it off to a distillery or something like that. And then you can take water that's purified, and the best way to do that is either with a Culligan mixed bed resin or use your RO. Make some nice clean water and replace it, and you just run this system until your wine is down below the 0.5. Usually want to shoot for about 0.3%, because then you're going to be adding back flavors and stuff. And so anyway, there's much more on this subject in the webinar that I'm sure Aude has posted already. That's where it is. Whoops. And what I was just showing you here is my website, Winemaking 411, and there's a link to the fundamentals of wine chemistry that Drew alluded to. It's a pretty great course, and I guess that's all I got.
Well, thank you.
Thank you very much, Clark. That was a great presentation with a lot of different innovations on new technologies, and I'm sure you have some questions about each of those technologies. So if you have any questions, please use the chat box that you have, and we're going to answer those questions with our group of winemakers.
And I was just going to say, in lieu of questions from the viewing audience, one of the reasons I wanted to have these 4 winemakers with us is they're some of the most innovative and technology forward-looking winemakers in the region here. So I'm hoping they may have some questions for Clark or need some clarification on some of these methods. So I hope our panel.
I would invite these guys to toss in other innovations. For example, you asked me to talk about flotation, and I just didn't have time to do it. But that's a great, for some of your more tannic whites, like Edelweiss, for example. You can really make a much better wine. I think Atasco benefits from it. Just browning out the juice before you add SO2 and then floating out the solids is a great technique, but I didn't really have time to talk about it. And so any of that stuff that you guys think would be useful to add to the pile, please chime in.
Yeah. So yeah, as I said at the beginning of the webinar, we are joined by Russ Funk, Josie Boyle, Ben Banks and Mark Wedge from different wineries in Minnesota and Wisconsin. So yeah, does any of you have any comments or questions? Like, have you used those different techniques or not yet? Or is it your future plan?
By the way,
Well,
Jody, I heard a lot about your wines. I'm sorry I didn't get a chance to taste them this weekend, but I'm looking forward to it. I hear you're pretty good.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Ben?
Clark, don't ever come back to Minnesota without letting me know. For Pete's sake, buddy, I owe you at least a nice lunch.
Okay, it's a deal.
Clark, I have a question. Um,
Okay.
I'm currently using a CDR wine lab that uses cuvées and light spectrometry. I'm wondering on the Essentia products, how accurate do you find those test strips to be?
Oh, I think they're really accurate. In fact, I've looked at it's solid state chemistry, but it's real chemistry. It's not like the Fourier transform bullshit that's out there. I like spectrophotometry too, but if you just want two free SO2s, it's way faster than aeration oxidation. If you want, you've just got one must coming in, and you don't really want to set up for glucose fructose. Now it's a different story uh, if you just want to test all your wines. Maybe you got a dozen wines or 2 dozen wines. You want to test for malolactic and see where they're at. Then I can see spectrophotometry. Uh, but if they're one-offs, then it's much more convenient to do them that way. And I really love eliminating that burette that I titrate PAs with, because I have to put my cabinets 1.5 feet higher just to make room for that damn burette. So that's one of my favorite parts of it. But I actually often recommend both, just depending on whether you just you want a little quickie, or you want to spend all day and get. But I think the accuracy is about the same.
Now,
And
Clark, I've been actually comparing both of those, Essentia and CDR Wine Lab, as
Yeah.
look to update some of my lab equipment. The only thing that I didn't see on the Essentia was YAN. That's otherwise the most
That's
important
very
parameter.
good point. So
But if
I brought this up.
what should I do for YAN?
I brought this up with the Vinmetrica guy, and I
Ah,
said, this is the one thing we can't send it out. We just got to know right now, and there's no way to do it. And he said, well, guess what? That's a smart guy. And
that's Richard Sportsman at Vinmetrica.
that's correct.
He
Yeah,
is brilliant.
I love that guy.
Yep.
So he came up with this idea, and I actually, maybe you guys can help me, because I don't quite understand the chemistry. I've looked it up, but anyway, he claims, and I believe him. What he does is run a TA down to pH 8.2. Okay, and then he adds formaldehyde, and there's some goofy reaction between ammonia groups, primary amino acids, not proline, but primary amino acids and ammonia. That, see, I've looked all this up, and it's true. But what he says is that reaction generates a proton, and I cannot find that in the literature anywhere. But his idea is that you titrate to 8.2, then you add the formaldehyde, and then it's going to lower the pH, and you titrate it again down to 8.2, and then he's got some conversion that tells you the relationship between the TA change and the how much yan you got. It sounds brilliant to me. So I asked him, can I do that with Essentia? Instead of tight. Of course, he didn't really want to answer that because he trying to sell the Vinmetrica, but he also sells Essentia. So that's the big open question. I don't know the answer.
Because I
So
would
I can
say,
use a little
yeah,
help
by
here.
Vinmetrica, using formaldehyde is not the best option because that's pretty toxic, formaldehyde. And in terms of chemistry, it's not that accurate. So
Well, okay, but what the hell else is there?
you can use kits from Megazyme, but that's more expensive and you need to have a spectrophotometer and you have to know a little bit more about the chemistry. So
Yep,
it's not
that's
convenient for winemakers. And I agree with Russ' comment. Sensia should try to find a way to measure yan in a quick way and
Well,
easy way.
I've made this point. That
Mhm.
would be, to me, that's the number one next thing for them.
I will just again, coming from a practical standpoint, uh, 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 I have been told, please correct me if I'm wrong, that the yan in fresh grapes doesn't change much from a week after veraison until harvest.
Yeah. So you could send it
So
out.
so you do
Yeah.
have an opportunity to take just freshly post veraison grape sample, juice sample, and send that out. And so by the time you come around a few weeks later to being curious about how much nutrient, how much nitrogen you need to add,
Yeah.
you've got that yan. So you got to think ahead a little bit. But this has been very interesting discussion, and I respect both sides. I think Ode is right for small wineries that maybe don't have a maybe proper ventilation or a proper lab environment, that maybe formaldehyde not exactly safe. Um, but even with that aside, I really respect the fact that Russ and other winemakers here are becoming aware of how much information a yan result can give a winemaker.
Yeah, I think in the bad old days, everybody would just add 50 parts regardless. But, sometimes you can have a yan that's like
I've never
3
done that.
times.
I'd never do that.
Yeah, that's what we all used to do until we realized that too much yan is worse than none at all. So I will point out that we don't really need all that much accuracy. We just want to know whether there's less than 100 or more than 200. Uh, we just want to get in the ballpark. I think your idea is great. I don't think I think I'd send something off like a week before or something, because it does degrade somewhat. But I think that's a wonderful idea. If you're over fertilized, you can end up with a yan of 400, and the last thing you want to do is add more.
I've seen that here in Minnesota
Yeah,
with Marquette. I've seen sky high yams,
yeah,
and which is handy because I rarely have the issue with rarely have that issue with nutrient deficiency in reds. It can certainly happen in whites, and I don't know about the other winemakers. I've noticed Itasca. As much as I love Itasca, it always seems to be a little naturally deficient and always needs a little extra nutrient.
I've had the
Does-
best
well,
luck
if we
with
could
it.
rely on it that it always needed some, then we would just add it. But see, that's a kind of local knowledge that you have that I just don't have.
Mark, you were saying?
Okay, what else we got? That was a really good question. What else should we talk about?
Mark?
I was going to say, Drew, that the first couple of years I had lots of H2S issues with Itasca, and current or multiple feedings of smaller amounts, along with pump over aerations, made all the difference.
Speaking of which, I just saw an article today, and of course I don't know where. I do a lot of article reading. It was reminding people that both white wines and rosé wines, certainly they can self-mix at the peak of fermentation when a lot of CO2 is being produced, but towards the last third of fermentation, you should stir, whether it's a pump circulation or a manual. You should always respend those lees towards the last third of a white wine or a rosé fermentation. I do it myself, natural. Of course, I just pick up a gallon jug and just give it a little stir. But if you've got 1,000-gallon tank, of course, if you don't have a Goose tank mixer, just a bottom to top circulation to resuspend those lees is very advantageous.
Well, I talked about this a little bit with the frequent punch down, like with the Go fermenter. We never get any H2S in anything in that. So, H2S is usually yeast retooling for some reason. It could be a nutrient thing, could be just a temperature thing. But I really discourage like adding DAP or something. You can make the H2S go away in an hour, but it may not really be a problem. If we get towards the end of fermentation, that's kind of a different story, but a lot of times those issues will resolve themselves. And especially in red wine, what I like to say is if you give them Twinkies, they won't eat their oatmeal. And a lot of times with a red that's going to age, you want a nutrient desert. And so you want them to consume all the amino acids and stuff. And that makes your life a lot easier when you get to fighting Brett and whatever. But if you just toss in DAP and rush the fermentation home, different story with a Tosca where you're going to bottle it right away anyway. But sometimes those issues will resolve themselves on their own.
So any of you have heard about the Go fermenter and use the Go fermenter that Clark spoke about?
I have a friend in California who is raving about them for his small lot Syrahs. It doesn't surprise me that especially with red winemaking, that they could be very, very handy, very useful with not a big initial investment. I don't know that I would head off to Argentina for 2 weeks, but maybe to take a weekend off in the middle of harvest, knowing that was happening automatically. I can't see how that would be a bad thing.
It's being able to punch down twice during the night while I sleep. I'll mention that just to see if it was going to work, I got a Go Fermenter Junior, and we had a white carpet in our office, and I wanted to train my office manager about fermentations, and we fermented a Petit Verdot on that white carpet, and didn't spill a drop. That really impressed me.
It's amazing that it evacuates the CO2 without taking in any air, that it can do the auto punch downs. As long as you've got a good temperature controlled space to conduct those fermentations, and the guaranteed sterility, the time saved in cleaning chemicals and water and time to do cleaning and sanitizing, all of that. And I got one stupid question here, which I want you to disavow me of. My wine's not going to taste like plastic, is it? I assume this plastic is 100% inert.
And it's also it also breaks down, so it's kind of biodegradable. I didn't mention this, but there is if you want temperature control, like if you were doing white wines in this thing, of course, if you're doing white wine, you don't need the punch down capability. But you can still take one of those liners. Anyway, there's a wand that goes underneath the bag that the controller will measure the temperature, and you can put glycol through it and control the fermentation that way. Most of the time, I don't have that problem because it's not a very big fermentation. But but I don't normally do whites. I'm doing reds, and I want all the heat I can get.
Hmm.
But that flag's available, and it's $600.
So Ben, Josie, do you have anything to share about those technologies?
Well, I've been using Zenith for a while now, and I really love it. It's
Yeah.
the best thing done. One question that popped up in my head was like, do you know exactly how bentonite fine they need to be for it to be effective? Is there a turbidity level we should be checking? I took a quick look. It said under 2, but do you know anything other than that?
That sounds about right to me.
Okay. But it's been a wonderful product. It's worked perfectly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I used to use CMC, and man, if your wine is going to be around for more than a year, you got trouble. But Zenith seems to just last forever. It's been around in Europe for over 10 years. So they really know what they're talking about in terms of ageability. I just really think it's God's gift.
Yeah. Any of you have used Zenith as well? Yeah, Russ?
Yep, especially even, well, there came a time where I had some red wine that was blending up and tried to get it in bottles right away. And I've had found crystals in bottles before. So I tried adding Zenith to it, and still, that was 2 years ago, and I still don't have any crystals in that red wine. So works on both, and that was Zenith color, of course.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, all the wines that I put it in, I've had really good luck with so far.
Good. Yeah.
Mark or Josie, have either of you used Zenith?
No.
Oh,
No, I've looked at it, but haven't pulled the trigger on it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, same.
I guess I don't feel I have the knowledge base for it yet, and it's another chemical I'm putting in wine, and it frankly kind of freaks me out. So
yeah,
and I do have the ability to chill, and we oftentimes do a seeding of
HT.
Yes, thank you. We seed it, mix it, and
Sure.
essentially it's stable 4 hours later. We just let it sit for a week to settle out, keeping it cold.
Okay.
If I had to pick one innovation out of the 12, the one that really, really blew my mind was accentuated cut edges.
Wow.
Oh, and I wanted to talk about that because you know that we tried on hybrids, especially on market grapes.
Yeah, that's what you said.
That tool was developed on Pinot Noir initially, and it was improving color for Pinot Noir. But when we used it on market, it wasn't improving color. It wasn't improving texture, mouthfeel. And that's most likely because we don't have the same compounds. We don't have the same phenolics.
Right.
And so we tried pressed early. So the piece versus the ace. We tried different techniques using the blender that you showed, but also using the Delatophora. None of those were giving like positive or expected results, especially in the long term. So we observed the change right at crushing when it was applied, but then that doesn't last.
Well, we had one of the trials we did up at Montezuma was with the Blaufränkisch, and we measured the wines with wine X-ray, which I love, and they had no tannin at all. I mean, less than 25 parts. And so initially, it's just as you say, there was big difference in color initially, and it kind of went away. However, the wine itself, it was much richer and more aromatic. I think I'm a big fan of copigmentation. We have a lot of nice tannin in our whites, like Itasca and Edelweiss, that isn't doing the wine any favors. So just making wine out of the free run, maybe even floating it, or going without SO2. But then take the skins, drop them in the red. Now, if the timing doesn't work out, you can inoculate your white with the yeast that you're planning to inoculate the red, and just let it go dry, and it basically turns into Worcestershire sauce. But then you get much better cold stability or color stability. But I did want to mention that Montezuma did buy one of these things, and Phil uses it for everything. I don't. I don't chop my Tannat or my Petit Syrah, but almost everything else, including most of the Cabernets. But he's really nuts about what it does, going direct to press with whites. And he had a Riesling there, and when you go to press any white, but Riesling especially, it kind of smells like hay. Well, this stuff didn't taste like that at all. We were just walking past the press, and there were all these terpenes coming out, and we knew that it was going to be special. And so now he pretty much does that. You get all the extraction you'd get from a 24-hour skin contact, but with none of the tannin. So, I mean, I think it's equally effective for whites, for just enhancing aromatics.
Yeah, I would agree, especially because that's a great tool just to break the skins, as you explained, but not the seeds. And so, yeah, that's giving all the aroma that you might be looking for. Yeah.
And you don't see any problem with any rapid oxidation, excess oxygen uptake, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, at that point,
the benefit outweighs the.
No. This is must. You have to have oxygen uptake.
All right. Good point.
Well, it's not necessarily oxidation, but you have to feed the yeast.
Yeah.
But anyway, I mean, I was 58 vintages into my career when I started doing this, and I thought I knew something, but my wines really took a quantum leap in quality when I started doing this.
Richard Smart was here at the HRC 5 years ago, I think, maybe 2019, and he after we'd got to know each other a little bit, towards the end of our visit, he kind of whispered to me that keep your eyes out. I have a new idea we're working on for better quality reds, and you'll be hearing about it in a year or two. So he sort of confided me in that, and I've been curious ever since. So we're glad to hear more work has gone forward, more data, more experimental work has been done. If I was still making commercial wine, I'd be thinking about buying that Robocoup blender.
It's only $1,000.
Well,
so go to my website and or the YouTube channel, and click on that Delatofila section, and he's on there. Of course, he has throat cancer and a very thick accent, so we were able to put subtitles on there so you can understand what the hell he's saying. But there's also a really good. I think you'd really like this if you're. He's basically figured out. This is wine X-ray. They figured out how to do the Adams assay spectrophotometrically without the high-speed centrifuge and everything. I love those. He does it for $50 an analysis, including giving you consulting about what's going on. So we've got a lot of good data there, and we did 10 different sensory points, and there's like a 1 hour teletasting that we did with all the participants, and sharing their their ideas, and I put everything in principal component analysis, so you can kind of see what happened.
Okay. So we have just 4 more minutes, but I really would like to hear a little bit more from you, winemakers. Do you have anything to share that wasn't mentioned, maybe?
Clark, I'm wondering if you can comment on the non-Saccharomyces yeast real quick. Like, what is it? I'm assuming it's eating sugar. What is it breaking it down into? If it has like a 1% alcohol tolerance.
That's a good question, and I don't know the answer. I don't know what it's making. It seems pretty neutral. Must be eating something. It must be making something, but it's a very good question.
And so if you were using it in a cold soak, like how long would you expect that culture to survive? How long would it be active? Like just until you put Saccharomyces in it, so a couple days, maybe even?
Oh, I think 4 or 5 days.
Yeah,
We
I've
ship
used
stuff across the country, and sometimes it takes a week, and it's still active.
So are they susceptible to SO2?
I think they say that you can use a much reduced amount of SO2.
Yeah, I think that's
10
right.
part per
You can use a
million.
little.
As I understand it, and correct me if I'm wrong, Clark, that I've used the Initia from Scott Labs, and it scavenges oxygen, and it's got some excess available copper that interferes with the biology of the spoilage bacteria.
Yeah.
And so especially when I'm pressing whites on Friday, and I'm not going to come back and inoculate until warm up and rack and inoculate till Monday. I've noticed it really does help keep my white juices very fresh and very clean. They don't start fermenting until I add the Cerevisiae. So these are just preliminary, again, small lots in my case. But anything that can help avoid oxidation or can help cancel spoilage bacteria has certainly got my attention.
When I use
Josie?
it, I don't use SO2.
Josie, what are you gonna say? Are you using
yeah,
that?
I was gonna say, yeah, I used the Initia yeast from Scott Labs last fall on a few lots that had come in really like, there was some fungus pressure and like they just didn't look that great. So I just kind of sprinkled some over while it was waiting for the press. And I think it made a huge difference. Whereas, I came back and I was expecting, ethyl acetate and like, a lot of like off aromas, but it was nothing. Like it really, really helped suppress any spoilage bacteria and yeast and everything. So
I was talking to a new winemaker last week. We've only got a minute left, and I was talking about how to pre-clarify, pre-treat your juice, white juices prior to fermentation. And so I'm like, well, I like to add some enzyme during pressing, and then I like to add little either some bentalact or maybe PVP and some bentonite to help preserve color and get some bitterness out, and then I like to add so between enzyme and some sulfur and some bentalact, and he's writing this all down, and he finally looks at me and says, "You haven't even mentioned yeast yet," which reminded me which reminded me of Mark Wedge's comment. Is I'm sure sometimes I come along with well, you're obviously not adding enough crap to your wine. You got to add this dust. You got to add that dust. You got to add this. And it seems sometimes that we're adding a lot of stuff to our wine, which we all know for 8,000 years made itself. But nonetheless, we certainly have learned a lot. There's a lot of new innovations in the last 25 years. And so I'll just make that comment. If any of these new winemakers out there watching seem like we're talking about adding one thing after another, well, yes, maybe we are, but it's not that much per unit of volume, and the benefits are quantifiable. So you ought to consider them. I'll stop talking. We need to get going. Ode.
All right, that was great comments. And as usual, we don't have enough time to discuss about all those different aspects, but let's talk about that in the future. So I would like to thank you, everyone, very much for your participation, especially all the panelists. So Clark, for your great presentation, but also Mark, Russ, Josie, and Ben for your participation. We hope that this webinar was helpful and brought some new knowledge to you. So please send us an email if you have any questions, or email Clark directly. Before closing this webinar, I would like to remind you to mark your calendar for the upcoming webinar. That's going to be August 5. We're going to talk about bulk storage management and the different considerations to have. Also, if you want to, yeah, go ahead.
I'm trying to scan your QR code and it tells me it's been deactivated.
Oh, all right. So don't scan the QR code. I'm gonna I can share that in the chat box again.
Yeah, there you go.
So yeah, on that note, I'm gonna share the link for the webinars, and have a great winemaking season. I'm looking forward to seeing you in August. Drew and I.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you
Great discussion.
Thank you for being here.